Hello and welcome to Baseball Uncorked. Tonight I will be speaking with Ryan Spaeder, or how his tens of thousands of Twitter followers known as the Ace of Spaeder, formerly the Ace of MLB Statistics. Hello Ryan, how are you doing
How you
tonight?
doing?
I'm doing
sorry,
good.
but I cut you off. I'm an amateur here. How's it going, DJ? Thanks for having me.
No problem. Pleasure. The pleasure's all mine. It's nice to have you on here. First, before we really get started, I just want to say thank you for your service to this country.
Thanks a lot. It means a lot. Thanks for the support.
So tonight we'll be talking about the 2017 Hall of Fame ballot, and more specifically who Ryan thinks should be getting in, who I think should be getting in. Couldn't think of a more qualified person to be discussing this than Ryan. He's an outspoken Tim Raines supporter. He's an outspoken Edgar Martinez supporter. For anyone who follows him on Twitter, you'll know that he tweets a ton about who he thinks should get in. Just pleasure having him on tonight.
Thanks a lot.
So there's a ton of guys on the ballot this year. Jeff Bagwell's back for his 7th year. Tim Raines on for his final year. So let's start there. Both of those guys, I ran a survey, and we had 150 or so people weigh in. Tim Raines and Jeff Bagwell were the only guys to get in with over 75%. Well, we had a bunch of guys getting knocked off. But on this year's ballot, if you had a vote, who would you be voting for?
Well, my 2017 Hall of Fame ballot, I actually did put out a phony one, because nobody cares what I think. But I have Tim Raines, Kurt Schilling. Just one thing on Schilling there. He's got a bad rep for, not really being the most politically correct guy. But, the fact of the matter is Baseball Hall of Fame is just that. It's the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's not a personality contest. And Schilling had a Hall of Fame career. He's the greatest postseason pitcher of all time, in my opinion. So I'm leaving him on my ballot. And we got Edgar Martinez, Jeff Bagwell, Manny Ramirez, Mike Mussina, of course, Pudge Rodriguez, Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, and then the 10th spot. I would have 11 with Larry Walker or Led Guerrero. 10th spot's going to go to one of them. That's to be decided. Not really sure. But then also I'd be remiss if I didn't include my honorable mention. That is Dr. Pat Burrell, who will make his first and likely only appearance on the ballot.
Speaking of Pat Burrell, and you're saying it's like his only appearance, in our survey he got 4.5%, so he'd be off.
That's very unfortunate.
Is there a reason you're such a supporter for guy Pat Burrell?
I just grew up a Phillies fan. Pat Burrell was a guy who I idolized as a young baseball fan, and it was just to see him finish out with the Phillies, winning the World Series in 2008. Of course, he was a horrible hitter in the World Series, historically horrible. Actually, if you look at his numbers, 1 hit and 27 at bats, I believe. But it was a big one. He had that big double that led to the Phillies World Series winning run, and just like a culminating event. And I always supported the guy, and his off-field antics are pretty well documented. So he's just a kind of a folk hero in Philadelphia.
I'm actually from Philadelphia also.
Excellent. I can tell by the way you're talking.
So Pat Burrell more of a fan response than a numbers response. That's understandable, and there's people who think like that. And I know you're more stats, but it's nice to see that you're thinking that way too. So,
Absolutely.
For years, you've been a huge supporter of Tim Raines. You're saying you'll get in. Our survey says you should get in. It's his final year on the ballot. You're probably his biggest supporter. You wrote about it in your book. You just want to go into a little bit of depth on that. And
yeah, but I gotta correct you there. I would not say I am Tim Raines' biggest supporter. I am just riding the Jonah Keri train. Jonah Keri got this thing kicked off, and he absolutely is he's Tim Raines' wingman. He got this thing started for him. I'm just riding the coattails.
All right, that's understandable.
But Tim Raines, fact of the matter is, a lot of the numbers in which Tim Raines succeeded didn't really exist when Tim Raines played. Wade Boggs, who forwarded our book, has this pretty cool quote. He said, "I was Moneyball before Moneyball was Moneyball." And it's true. Wade Boggs didn't care about hitting for a batting average. He didn't care how he got on base. He didn't care about hitting home runs. And, if you ever get the chance to talk to Peter Gammons, he'll tell you Wade Boggs could hit batting practice home runs with the best of them. All Wade Boggs cared about was getting on base. And that's the model of today's game. and that's something that Tim Raines exceeded at, and before it was really a thing. Sure, he won that one batting title, but you know what? If you look at the on-base percentage, it's comparable to Tony Gwynn, you know, who's looked at as one of the greatest hitters of all time. Tim Raines just when you break down the stats, it's there's really no question. You got something like from 1982 to 86, Raines had at least 30 doubles and 70 stolen bases in each season. Before that season, the only 30-70 season was Ty Cobb's back in 1915. Then the following year, you know, he failed to get that 30-70 season, but you know, it really wasn't a big deal because he batted 330, 429, 526, stole 50 bases, and only two other people had such a slash line with as many stolen bases. Both of them were MVPs. You got George Sisler and, of course, Ricky Henderson, who you probably imagine. I mean, the Raines' numbers speak for himself. He did it, and I spoke with him a little while back, and one of his things was that the numbers were never a thing for him, and you often hear players say that, but I truly believed it because the way he explained it was, you know, he could have stolen more bases, but he only stole bases to help his team win. He never wanted to get caught, and his 84.7% success rate, you know, speaks volumes to that. A guy like Ricky Henderson, who is often regarded as the greatest base stealer of all time, and maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but he would have to come back to baseball and steal 448 straight bases to pass Tim Raines in success rate. And you know what? I know that Ricky's stays in good shape, but I really don't think he's got a shot at that.
I would agree with you on that. He's a little old to be coming back and stealing bases against the catchers that are in the game now. But so those are some incredible numbers for Tim Raines. I know he walked a ton, and that on-base percentage, what was it, around 400, I believe it was, right up there with Jeff Bagwell.
Right. He was just shy, right around the range of Gwynn, like you said. Yep.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, Bagwell. Yep.
So Tim Raines, that's your number one guy. If you had one spot on your ballot and you can only vote for one guy, Tim Raines is the guy getting your vote, correct? Just want to clarify.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's no question about it. Last year on the ballot, I'm giving it to Rock.
Okay. So we've talked about Tim Raines now. I want to move over to the other guy that our survey said would get in, and that's Jeff Bagwell, who is widely considered one of the greatest first basemen ever. The numbers he put up were incredible. Just want to speak about that. If you look at his slash line, 297, 408, 540, it's good for an OPS plus of 149 that ranks 21st all-time among players with at least 8,000 plate appearances. His WAR was 79.6, which would rank 4th among first basemen behind only Lou Gehrig, Jimmy Fox, and Albert Pujols. It'd be 5th if you count Stan Musial, but many wouldn't because he.
Were those guys any good?
Yeah, I think they're, except for Albert Pujols, I think they're all currently in the Hall of Fame. And his WAR is ahead of guys such as Rod Carew, Frank Thomas, Eddie Murray, and they're all Hall of Famers. They're not just Hall of Famers, they were first ballot Hall of Famers. Frank Thomas got in last year at 83.7%, and Jeff Bagwell's now in his 7th year on the ballot, and he's getting closer. Last year he got 71.6%. I believe he gets in this year. If not, I believe he'll eventually get in. Just should be time.
I definitely agree with you. I mean, Bagwell, I think something that is keeping him off the ballot is that there's a stigma with playing in the era that he played in. And you know what, the fact of the matter is, whether you're pro-steroids or anti-steroids, or you think these guys cheated, or you know what, they're a product of their time, because that's kind of where I fall in line. I think players have always cheated. They will always cheat in some way, shape, or form. You know, there's players in the Hall of Fame who have cheated. But the fact of the matter is, Bagwell's only guilty by association here. His name has never been attached to any of this stuff. I mean, if you look at when he started to fall off, it was like age 33, 34. You know, Bonds hit his 73 home runs. Of course, Bonds is the poster boy. You know, that's another talk for another interview. But Bonds hit his 73rd home run when he was in 37. Bagwell was already out of the game. Bagwell is by and large a Hall of Famer, and probably should have been in a while ago. Honestly, probably before his teammate Greg Biggio.
I would agree with you on that. The other stat I had was if you take out 2005, which was his final season, when he only played 39 games, he produced at least a 3.7 WAR each of his 14 years. Only 18 other players have many such seasons.
Wow.
It just goes to how great his actual Hall of Fame resume is. He also played great defense, which many people don't even which goes in the WAR. But a lot of people don't think about as Jeff Bagwell. They think of a power hitting first baseman, but his defense was actually the greatest all time at first base. If you go off total zone fielding runs above average and baseball references, base running runs, it ranks first.
Yeah, I mean, just to chime in a little bit on their stats. I mean, another thing he doesn't credit for is the guy can steal bags, ironically enough. But he actually put up 2 seasons where he had 30 doubles, 40 homers, 30 stolen bases, 100 walks. And, I mean, there's been almost 19,000 players play in history, and of them, all of them combined have 0 such seasons. And Bagwell had 2, not 1 but 2. And just one other of my favorite facts that involves his power and his stolen bases. In '94, he became the first player to slug 750 or better in a season with at least 15 stolen bases since Babe Ruth in 1923. The only other player with such a season in history is, well, again, Babe Ruth in 1921. So, I mean, you got Bagwell and Ruth. Pretty good company there.
Yeah, I actually had a stat on his stolen bases. He's since 1920, he's the only first baseman to steal 200 bases, reaching double digits
awesome.
10 times, and he accounts for the position's only 2 30 home run, 30 stolen base seasons, which you just said.
Yep.
And then he has 5 15-15 campaigns, which are 2 more than any other first baseman.
I think that any outsider just listening to the conversation we have, and you take out the name, they'd be like, wow, how is this guy not a Hall of Famer? And I think it just goes back to what I said earlier, is there's just that stigma playing in that era.
Which is a travesty, because
Agreed.
You're connecting him when he didn't fail a test. You have a guy like Gary Sheffield, is the same thing. He's caught in the stigma when he never actually failed a drug test. And then technically Barry Bonds never failed a drug test, but that's a whole other story.
Right. Well, let me drop something on you real quick just on this topic. The thing that bothers me a ton is that McGwire should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm a firm believer of that. And McGwire not only never failed a test, but he never actually took an illegal supplement. He was taking stuff that wasn't banned. It only was later banned, and he admitted to taking these things. And it's incredible that it's being held against him in hindsight. It'd be like holding the fact that guys like Willie Mays and Hank Aaron took speed, and Greenies, Pete Rose took them. It'd be like holding that against them because it's illegal now. It's not right, and these guys belong in a Hall of Fame.
I'll agree with you on Pete Rose. McGwire, I understand where you're coming from. I still believe it's cheating, even if it wasn't illegal at the time. It's just they were performance-enhancing drugs. Speed's a different story. I'm not sure how much that really helped you. I guess it could help a little on focus. That's a whole other argument, though.
Well, I not to get off topic, but it's not so much focus as it helps these guys get out there every single day. And the fact of the matter is that what's the end goal of steroids, and that's the same thing: play 162 games as strong as possible. But sorry to get you off topic there.
It's all good. Speaking, if you were talking about Pete Rose, Jeff Bagwell and Pete Rose actually have the same exact WAR. So.
Oh, no kidding! I actually didn't know that. That's pretty great.
Yeah. So, Tim Raines, Jeff Bagwell, we believe will both get in. There's a couple guys that were close last year, or that are moving up, that I don't believe will get in. I think it will just end up being the 2 of them. Then you have first ballot guys like Vladimir Guerrero, who should get in. I doubt he gets in this year. He'll probably get in eventually. And you said a guy like Manny Ramirez, I don't think he should be in. He failed numerous drug tests, and that's how he ended up ending his career.
Right. I think that's just something we're going to disagree on. I think that players today are taking things that can't be tested. I think that Manny Ramirez, sure, did he hit a couple home runs because he took supplements to make him stronger? Certainly. But how many times did he strike out against a pitcher taking the same stuff? I think that that's something you're either on one side of the fence or the other. You're never going to be standing on it or hopping over the other side.
I'll agree with you on that. There's proponents for both sides. You won't really hear anyone say one guy should get in, while another guy shouldn't. What really I think is funny, though, speaking on that topic, is the people who think that Manny Ramirez should get in, and then will say will be a strict proponent of Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens shouldn't get in, which makes no sense.
It's funny, right? These are the same people who want David Ortiz to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but then never want Barry Bonds' name mentioned around baseball again.
Yeah, David Ortiz is another guy who failed. I know you've put out a ton of tweets about Edgar Martinez over David Ortiz. You want to speak a little on those?
Yeah. Well, Edgar Martinez, the fact of the matter is, the guy didn't hit the home runs that David Ortiz did, but his slugging was right up there. And you got Edgar Martinez had a career slash line of 312, 418, 515. David Ortiz matched each leg of that slash line just once in his entire career, 2007. And we're talking a career versus a guy that everybody is positive is a first ballot Hall of Fame. And something that's held against Edgar Martinez is, all right, he didn't play so much in the field. But you take a guy like Derek Jeter, who, played in the field his entire career, and he was hurting his team by playing in the field, especially towards the end of it. Edgar Martinez was a specialist. No different than another guy who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, Mariano Rivera. Edgar Martinez was the best at his craft. He's the greatest designated hitter of all time. There's a reason it's not the David Ortiz Award. It's not the designated hitter award. Hell, it's not the Frank Thomas Award. It's the Edgar Martinez Award. And I think it's pretty silly to have an award named after you like that and not be in the Hall of Fame.
I'll agree with you on that. If you look at career WAR, he's 76th all time, despite having no defensive value to his team. So it just speaks to how great of a hitter he was.
You're right. He really was. And talk about things like I don't know if I necessarily believe in clutch hits, but you can find a ton of them just by looking at. The '95 playoffs. Edgar Martinez, definitely a guy who I would vote in. I would have voted him in the first ballot.
I won't disagree with you on that. I have him on my ballot also. One of the stats I have is from 1990 to 1999. Martinez's .322 batting average was third best in the majors, behind only Hall of Famers Tony Gwynn and Mike Piazza, while it was ahead of Hall of Famers Frank Thomas and Paul Molitor. So people are looking at Frank Thomas and Paul Molitor. I understand. Paul Molitor spent a ton of time at DH, and so did Frank Thomas. I don't understand why people can look at those guys and say they're Hall of Famers, but a guy like Edgar Martinez is not.
Right, and just let me jump into the stat brigade here. One of my favorites is during a 3-year stretch from 1995, 1997, what everybody will remember as the Ken Griffey Jr. prime years. Jr. had a stout 385 on base percentage during that time. Martinez topped that during the same stretch. He had a 386 on base percentage, but not overall, with 2 strikes against him. 386. 2 strikes against him. Unbelievable.
That's insane. 18 seasons, career 312, only 5 right-hand batters in the post-1961 expansion era have done better. He's just another guy we both agree should get in. I don't think he'll get in this year. And that will put him on next year, which would be his 9th year on the ballot, correct?
I believe so. I'm not positive on the numbers of ballots, but it sounds about right. And after we get Raines in this year, after Raines gets himself in, as he's deserved for a long time this year, my focus is going to really shift towards Edgar and Schilling, honestly, because my thing with Schilling is, all right, maybe the guy is a bit of an a-hole, but the fact of the matter is he is a Hall of Fame baseball player. I don't care if he's not a Hall of Fame person. You could go through all the Hall of Famers, and you can probably find a good number of non-Hall of Fame people who are baseball Hall of Famers.
It appears off our survey that a lot of people didn't agree with you on that. He only got 21.3%, which is way lower than the 52.3% he got last season.
Certainly. It's the guy can't keep himself in a positive light with certain people, and a lot of those people happen to be baseball fans.
and they're the ones voting. It's
right.
Sorry as that is to say.
It is unfortunate, but it's what it is.
So you want to move over to relievers now. There's two main ones on the ballot. One was pretty close this year at 67.3%, while the other one was all the way down to 10.5%. And those guys are Billy Wagner and Trevor Hoffman, with Trevor Hoffman being the one at 67.3%. As many people believe that he should get in and should have gotten in last year. I happen to disagree. I'm wondering what you think.
Honestly, I really don't have much of an opinion. I really hate the position of closer. I don't believe in a closer, and I'm glad that that's kind of becoming a thing in baseball. You know, you saw with Andrew Miller being used in the fifth inning in games during the postseason. I mean, it's really just a statistic that was invented in the 70s. I mean, a lot of these statistics, sure they were invented in that, but it's almost like an agent invented statistic to make a guy more valuable than he actually is. In terms of Trevor Hoffman, I mean, again, you got an award named after the guy. It's hard to say that a guy who has an award named after him shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, but I kind of agree with you in the sense that these guys are relief pitchers. They have maybe 1,000 innings, 700 innings. It's really hard to say that they're as valuable as a guy with 3,000 innings or 4,000 innings. But I wouldn't have a problem with getting either one of them in there. And if I had only 8 guys, I'd probably put them on 9 and 10. But they're going to be the first guys that I would leave off if I can fill out a ballot otherwise.
I actually considered one for my ballot, left Hoffman off completely, solely off the fact that if you drop out saves, which you were just talking about how they were a stat just made up to provide value to a pitcher when they don't really mean anything because you're taking into account, look at the World Series, when Chapman blew the save and then ended up getting the win.
Oh, don't get me started.
That's one of the worst things that happened in baseball, but that's a whole other discussion.
He got arguably the most important win in baseball history, and he blew a 3-run lead. But you're right. Another time.
We could talk for a long time on that discussion. My thing with Wagner is that he was the overall better pitcher than Hoffman in almost every account. If you drop out saves, if you go off strikeouts per 9, strikeout percentage, strikeouts per walk, batting average against, ERA, fielding independent pitching, adjusted fielding independent pitching, Sierra, he's better in all those numbers. The only ones where Hoffman wins are saves in total WAR, and he barely wins in total WAR despite having 181 additional games and 186 additional innings, which just goes with how much of a better pitcher Wagner was when he was pitching than when Hoffman was.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Wagner was definitely a more dominant pitcher. Of course, Hoffman had the longevity that Wagner didn't have. Maybe he did. I mean, he had a great season in his final year. But Wagner was definitely the more dominant of the two. I definitely agree with you on that.
Unfortunately, Wagner might end up getting left off completely this year, but it is what it is, and we'll see what happens when the voters submit their ballots. I'm going to guess Hoffman is going to get closer. I don't think he'll get in. A guy you were talking about before was Larry Walker. You're saying if you had that 10 spot, you might leave him on, you might leave him off. Looking at his numbers, what puts him in that 10th spot for you if you were going to put him in that 10th spot?
For me, that 10th spot belongs to either Walker or Vlad. I really haven't decided. But Larry Walker is the Coors Field thing's held against him quite a bit. But you look at his OPS plus, his wins above replacement. He didn't have the hit total, but it's home runs and stolen bases. He had elite totals across the board, and it's just hard for me to look at some of the guys who are in the Hall of Fame and then say that this guy does not belong.
I'm on the proponent side of that he shouldn't get in. We were talking about how the splits between Coors Field and away, it's 70 points. It's not even remotely close. If it was someone like 20 points, 30 points, you could make the case. But when it's 70 points and then you're looking at his OPS, and it's 200 points. I just can't. He just can't have my vote, in my opinion.
All right. Well, hold on. Check this out. I don't mean to give you a homework assignment, but this is something that maybe we can talk about in the future. I want you to look at Chuck Klein, who is a Hall of Famer. Look at his numbers in the Baker Bowl versus everywhere else. You won't believe it. Baker Bowl was Coors Field before Coors Field was Coors Field. It is unbelievable.
All right, I'll have to look that up because I'm not sure on his splits. But all right, I'll trust you on that one. You were talking about if you're not sure if it belongs to Walker or Vlad, you would leave Vlad off in his first year on the ballot.
Not necessarily. Like I said, I would either. I'm kind of I got some research to do yet as to who I would get at 10 spot to in terms of Walker or Vlad. But the fact of the matter is, it's Vlad's first year. He'll be on it next year. Walker will as well. Neither one of them is going to suffer. No harm, no foul. But then again, if everybody's thinking the way I am, and they're coin tossing, then neither one of them are going to get in. You know.
Yeah, that seems to what happens. People will look at it and say, "Oh, we're not sure which one," or everyone else is going to vote for him. He doesn't have to be in unanimously, and then a bunch of people leave him off.
I hate that.
The worst was last year.
Should have gotten 100%.
Same thing with Greg Maddux. I don't know how you could look at those guys' numbers and say they're not a Hall of Famer.
Seriously. It's not even funny. Yep.
And if you go through history, there's a bunch of guys like that. Since no one's gotten 100%, there's always some voter who says, "Well, I guess you could go all the way back." But in recent years, there's no one. Actually, no one's gotten 100%. Yeah.
No, nobody's ever gotten
100%.
I mean, look at a guy like Ted Williams. He was left off 17 ballots. Like,
yeah.
The guy had missed. He's probably, I mean, top 3 best hitter of all time, maybe top 1, and he missed like 7 seasons serving the country at time of war. It's absurd that anybody would think I'm leaving this guy off my ballot.
And then when he came back, he was just as good, if not better.
Right, exactly.
And then you even look back at a guy like Ty Cobb, which I know people consider him a racist, and he loses his votes kind of like that, same way Curt Schilling does, and people look at it, don't look at him the same way than if he wasn't and hadn't done so many things that true hatred against him. But I don't know how you can look at his numbers and say, well, he didn't accidentally hit 360 for his career.
That's true. I mean, the guy could have gone 0 for 5 seasons and still batted. Literally 0 for 5 like seasons worth of at-bats and still been a 300 hitter. That's how high a batting average he had.
My favorite Ty Cobb stat is that he led the league in home runs when they were all inside the park home runs.
Yep, had Triple Crown that year. Yeah. 1909, I believe. That's pretty awesome.
Just my favorite Ty Cobb stat. If we're going off greatest player ever, I'd have to say Ty Cobb.
It's hard to disagree. I mean, when you're talking greatest player ever, somebody's going to have an opinion, and I mean, maybe you have a different one, but you're going to have everything to back it up, regardless on whether you're Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Ted Williams. You know, these guys are all synonymous with best player of all time.
Yeah, no one's going to disagree on that. All those guys were outstanding careers. They're all Hall of Famers. There's going to be a few guys to get on the shows and a few guys to get left off. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens when they announce it in January.
Yep.
So, Ryan, it was a pleasure talking to you tonight.
Hey, DJ, thanks a lot for having me, man. This was a real treat for me. Thanks a lot. I hope I can do it again.
I would love having you on again. It was a pleasure having you. Once again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for serving this country. And have a nice night.
All right, thanks a lot, man.